Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Mike Ames Recruitment Show, where we're going to be discussing the 5 big mistakes that Mike made in his previous businesses so that you don't have to make the same ones. Isn't that right, Big Mike?
Certainly is, and it's safe to say as well that we're not really here. So you can put comments in. I'm going to answer them later if you've got questions or comments. But sadly, we're not here today. So Kirsty's taken holiday,
Selfishly.
and I have an outside meeting with some other people.
Does it involve a long stick and a small ball?
Yeah.
Playing golf, yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. All right, Mike. So let's just sort of delve into this. For people who don't know, can you explain the background that you've had as a business owner?
Okay, very quickly. I've been in business since 1989. I've had 2 really big businesses that were built and sold, recruitment companies, and then obviously we've got Flair now. And I've had 1 or 2 little interests along the way. And during that journey, I have made several mistakes, several hundred mistakes. In fact, it was a struggle to get it down to just 5, if I'm honest with you. But I'll tell you why we're doing this, right, very quickly. Because I talk to a lot of clients. In fact, we've got more clients there than we've ever had. And I noticed some of these mistakes cropping up time and time again. In other words, people are still making them, and it's unnecessary. And some of them are quite dangerous. So I thought, you know what? Come on here, bare my soul, and just share with everybody what the heck I've been doing recently. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so we are going to delve into the 5 in a second, but can we first talk about what those dangers are? Because some of the dangers are for if you're going to sell your business, but some of them are if you're just running it as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about here is you, as the business owner, one way or the other, paying a price. Either you personally and your family, or your business profitability, or in one case, which I'm going to share with you, the existence of your business. So you have to pay a price. And I don't think it's worth it if you don't have to. Why would you do that? If you can avoid it, why would you do that? And that's the point, really, of today's show.
Okay, so let's delve into these 5 mistakes. And the first one you've got down as poor delegation.
Yeah. It was thinking that it was just the Mike Ames show. Before that, the Mike Ames show, it was all about me, really. Yeah, it's all about me. And it wasn't an ego thing necessarily. I mean, the circumstances of the business was our senior partner died in a car accident. I suddenly become the MD. No idea what I'm doing at all. And so bumble through as best as I can. And then I realize that I'm kind of okay with it. And then it goes too far the other way. So nothing in my business really moved without me being involved. It was quite of a big deal, really. And so I was all right with it to being that way. And in fact, for a time, it was like uber efficient because there was no communication lines. It was all in there.
I think that's the big thing, isn't it? People think it works because it definitely works at the beginning when the business is smaller.
100%, yeah, when it's small, yeah, it does work. And you begin to believe that this business can be as big as I want it to be because I'll just do next week what I did the previous week. And then the week after that, I'll do it again. And eventually I have this huge business. But then what happens is you reach a stage where you can't grow because you're not scalable. You become from being your business's biggest strength, you suddenly become its biggest liability. And I think that for me was quite a moment. I nearly had a nervous breakdown. I've spoken about it before. I'm not going to speak about it again. It put a lot of pressure on the family and a whole bunch of stuff went on. But mostly from the business perspective, we stopped growing because I couldn't do anymore, right? And when I started to delegate or let things go, I did it badly. I didn't do it properly. In many cases, it was abdication, where you just let it go. Well, God knows what you'll get then. But in some cases, it was the opposite, where I wasn't really delegating. I was keeping hold of power over something, keeping the responsibility for myself, just expecting someone else to do it. Well, that doesn't fly either. And so this ability to get the right people in your business that you can delegate to, I mean, that's the step one.
Right.
It's all really well being able and having the desire to let things go, but if you don't have the people in your business that you can give things to, isn't going to work, right? And then the second thing is learning how to delegate. And we hired a consultant. Well, she helped us with scalability, full stop, Anne-Marie, but she helped me personally to learn how to delegate. I began to understand that what delegation really was letting to begin with letting a partial authority, but having touch points, letting it go, and then having like empowerment where you let the whole thing go really, and just someone runs it, and you just get data to tell you what's happened as opposed to what's going to happen. So, and that was a big learning curve for me, that poor delegation. I'd say it's the thing that holds people back, particularly that thing where they share tasks. I'm giving this to you, but I'm going to keep checking to see whether you're doing it or not. So there's no ownership there really. So the ability to learn to delegate, and I think we did a show on it as well.
We've done quite a few shows on it, delegation, and so that's sort of to overcome this big mistake. It's something that you need to grow a team that you can actually delegate to, but you also need to work on your own delegation skills. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's two things really. It's getting, well, first three things really. First of all, accepting that you need to delegate and get rid of things. Secondly, is getting the right people, or these days, the right external partners, because we're obviously virtual now. So you can use external companies or virtual people or wherever. But it doesn't matter. But basically, somebody else is going to do it rather than you. And then thirdly, the most important and the most difficult and the most trial and error imbued is learning how to delegate.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So that makes sense. So delegation, that makes sense that might be a danger to your business and you become a bottleneck. What is the second one?
Okay, well, I've got no idea until you bring it up. Oh, yes. There you go.
Smooth skills.
Boom, shakalaka. Well, you don't expect me to remember 5 things in a sequence, Kirsty. I mean, I'm old now. #senior moment. Right, so what this means is I got confused between having a safe and a secure business and one that makes a lot of money. And at one point, we had too few clients and too much business going through those clients. Now, this was a contract business, so there's a big cash flow associated with it. One of these companies at some point was going to go bankrupt, and they owed us £250,000, which these days doesn't sound like a lot of money, but in those days, it was a lot of money, and it would have wiped us out. It would have finished us, all because I hadn't understood that you have to grow a balanced client estate. In other words, you have to think about where your business is coming from and don't have too many eggs in too few baskets, because if you're perm, it's not a cash flow issue, but if you contract, it is. But either way, if you lose a big client, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And luckily, we got away with it because they paid us and then they went bankrupt, which was jolly decent of them, I think. But it was luck rather than judgment. And that was the second time that had happened. It had happened not long after we'd started, where 90% of our contractors were in one client, a famous chocolate manufacturer in South Birmingham, actually. And they said to us, oh, look, at the end of their year, which was December, we got to let all the contractors go. We'll take them back in April, but we got to let them go now. Well, that would have wiped us out then. It's like, well, okay. In the end, they didn't lose everybody, and we picked up a new client, which just got us through. But it's not thinking about the clients. Think of a client estate as like any other estate, like an estate in Scotland. People manage it. They make sure they've got the right trees and make sure that the waterways are clear and the bridges are in good order. They actively manage that client estate to make it what they want it to be.
So when you're talking about that, are you talking about size of client, as in how much percentage of your revenue is coming from them? Are you talking about industries? Are you talking about locations? What do you mean by a balanced client estate?
Okay, all of the above, really. Certainly the amount of business that you've got going through a small number of clients. It is a good spread. The benefit of having big clients is they're very efficient. You can make a lot of money on them. Even if the margins are lower, you can still make a lot of money because it's easier to manage a big client than it is lots of small ones. But it's risky because if they just kick out all your contractors or stop hiring from you, then obviously that revenue stream has disappeared. And if in this case, this was a smaller business, if they just go bankrupt or outstretch their own finances, then you could lose money that you've already paid out. So, but you can also balance it in different sectors. We saw that in 2020 where people had more sectors that they were in one or the other. So, okay, that's gone, but this is still here. I tell you, talking about Cadbury's. Oh, were we? Oh, I don't know.
No, just really lovely chocolate.
Cadbury's bought access to Schweppes, the drinks company. And it was called Cadbury Schweppes for a long time. And the reason they did that was in the summer, nobody really eats chocolate, but they all drink fizzy drinks. In the winter, nobody drinks fizzy drinks really, but they all eat chocolate. So they thought by having that balanced portfolio that clients would buy this or they would buy that. Well, it's kind of the same mentality when it comes to clients, really. An understanding that you have to build something which is safe and secure and profitable and do it on purpose.
Okay, so that really is sitting down either with your business partner or by yourself and looking at your current client estate and planning how you're going to make it safe and, plan for the future. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's building your client estate on purpose.
Intentionally. Okay. So the next one is around hiring the wrong people. So is this I imagine is sort of linked to delegation in a way,
well, sort of,
but
yeah.
it's
I mean,
different as well.
Delegation, you're looking for people you can delegate to, so they're more senior usually. But when I've hired, so our approach to hiring people was refrigerator recruitment. So I'd go and see people a few times usually before I'd make them an offer, or somebody would know them in the organization, So I got to know them a little bit, which reduces the chance of making that mistake, because it's not one interview that's an hour. It's several interviews down the pub normally. Excuse me. And it was over several months, and you get to see them for extended periods of time. So the chances of making a mistake diminishes. But what this really refers to is when I knew inside, my little inner voice inside told me that this was not a good hire, but it was drowned out by the other Mike saying, no, they're a good guy. I've known them for years. They're a mate, or they're a mate of a mate. They're bound to work out, And you just think, if you listen to that little voice inside, it knows almost always it's right. And don't be swayed by letting that voice be drowned out by your more conscious self that's actually bringing in baggage or influences from other areas that's basically swaying your decision. Listen to that little voice and do what it says. And if somebody's the wrong hire, I don't care who they are, don't hire them, because you're only going to end up engineering them out of the business at some point, which is not what you want.
Do you think a lot of that comes from as well is that it's very often that people run hot and then they just need to get somebody and anybody to help put bums on seats? So do you think sometimes that you make the hires based on high pressure and you just need a person and you're not necessarily looking for the right person?
Yeah. You heard the expression, decide in haste, repent at leisure.
Mm-hmm.
Never was it more true when it comes to hiring people. 100%.
Okay, so what are you supposed to do instead then? You mentioned listening to that little voice, but I mean, that little voice is going to be massively drowned out if you're running in a hot company and things like that.
Right. Two things. You're probably running hot because you didn't plan for it, right? So you're always running near to capacity, and then you get a big bunch of work coming in and that's it, your capacity's blown. Well, don't do that. Always run with 10, 15% extra capacity in the business that you need, because you can grow into it. Like when you went to school, when I went to school in the 60s, we were quite poor. So mom would buy me a very big pair of school trousers. At the end of the term were a little bit tight on me, but at the beginning of the term were very loose. There's
a blazer where the sleeves come down here, that kind of thing.
That's the ticket. Yeah. She would still do that now if she could, bless her. But I think so purposefully think about your business and be confident in your growth so that you can hire in advance. Also, with refrigerator recruitment, you're hiring all the time, or at least looking all the time. So if you do that properly, there are always people in the fridge ready for you to open the door and take them out, because you've interviewed them a few times. They're up for it. You're up for it. You just wait for an opportunity. The opportunity presents itself so you can react to it. You can, of course, say no to the clients, which is I'd prefer to do that. And weirdly, so would they, actually, in the sense that they don't want you to say, yeah, I can do that, and then you can't. So just saying to the client, I'm sorry, we are at maximum capacity. I can't do that now. I'll be able to do it in 3 weeks' time when this project finishes or whatever, but I can't do it now. They respect that honesty, I think. But that's better to do that than watch your service levels drop and then have to recover that reputation later.
Okay, now just sort of on this, let's say you have hired the wrong person. Are you of the thought to sort of cut dead weight sooner rather than later, or do you think you can change people?
Yeah. What do they say? Another one, quick to hire, no, slow to hire, quick to fire.
Right.
I'm just full of cliches today.
I was going to say, there's a lot of idioms coming out today.
Yeah, well, a cliche is just simply an overused truth, don't you? So it just because it's a cliche doesn't make it not true. But you should, and if you put together a proper onboarding plan We believe in a 100-day onboarding plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just about getting someone up to speed as quick as you possibly can in a very efficient way, a very focused way, but also it's about making sure that you know that you've hired the right person. So I was talking to one of my clients this morning, and I'm a big believer, if you take rookies, to put them through a fairly intense 3-month program. And there's quite a few of them out there at the moment. You can kind of put people through, because that's actually like a 13-week interview, really. I mean, they're going to learn some stuff, of course, and get a lot of things done to get them a base level of knowledge, but you'll be able to know at the end of that whether they're going to cut it or not. So whether you use that method or just watch what they do and set targets and see what they do against those targets, doesn't matter. But you should basically get rid of someone if they're not going to deliver, or if their attitude is wrong. Because, what do they say? More cliches.
Bad apple. More coming. There's more coming.
Bad apple spoils the barrel. Is it that?
Yeah. Bad apple spoils the bunch. Whatever.
That's bananas, isn't it? I don't know. Is it?
Anyway, moving on. So with this hiring the wrong people, first of all, if you have done that, then get rid of them if they really aren't going to work out for you. But you need to plan your company so that it has some wiggle room in it. So you shouldn't be running hot unless you're coming up to a sale and you're right at the end.
Oh, that's different. But if you're confident in your ability to win new clients and bring in vacancies, then why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, 100%. And then the other thing to do is to use that refrigerator recruitment. Always be looking. And then as soon as you get to the point where you're like, now is the time, you can pull someone out of the fridge and hire them. Okay, fantastic. So, Mike, the fourth one that's coming up is a bit more of a personal one, which is putting the business ahead of your family. And
well, you would know, wouldn't you? You would know.
I was
really.
There. Yeah, I was there.
If Peter was here, we'd have a different story completely, because he's older than you, isn't he? But I think, okay, when you start a business, you really have to do everything the business needs. For the first year or two, that's the deal. And you shouldn't.
Like a newborn, isn't it? I suppose
it is. Yeah, it's a total commitment, and the business always comes first, right? Okay, but after that, you really should have organised it so it's not like that anymore. And the reason that people do it continually is because they like it, or they're in a habit that's what they do, or they think they should. That's what they think they should. It's a myth. As soon as you can ship out activities and responsibilities to other people, you should. Right now, when you run a business, the first 3 years, which is when you're creating a viable business, takes about 3 years to create a viable business. There are going to be times when you need to work very hard, and you're always going to be there. You're always going to be the escalation point, right? I get that. But this idea of going on holiday and still doing emails or taking telephone calls, are you so important then that the business won't run without you for a week or 2 weeks? Because I don't buy that. You can set it up in advance that things will happen without you being there. You can set escalation points with your team. And if you're on your own, then it's about really limiting the amount of time that you spend. Don't do things because you can. Only do things because you absolutely, totally need to on that day. Otherwise, just leave it till you come back. And that means that your family have you physically, but also mentally. Because as soon as you answer that email, your head's gone somewhere else. Back to Blighty. It's not with your family anymore. And probably for a bit after that, you'll be thinking about it. And they know, don't they, Kirsty?
It is something that you're aware of, definitely. And I mean, for this, I think a lot of people don't necessarily recognize it, but maybe diminish it. But like you say, if you had Pete here, when you started the business, Pete was about 5. I was a newborn when you started the business. I think I was like a month old or something.
You weren't even born, my dear.
Wasn't I? Thought it was November 89.
No, it was April.
April, right. So I was still cooking. And so my images of those first couple of years less, but it definitely, I was aware, we weren't, because it was back in the 90s, so you didn't have mobiles, but we weren't allowed to talk on the phone because you'd be working, we had to be quiet in the living room, and you didn't come home pretty much most of the week. We wouldn't see you because you'd be up early and home late. And in hindsight, do you think you'd do it differently now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, you don't have to make yourself 100% available to your business. It doesn't make any difference, really. Right. And okay, when you start, for the first little bit, you probably do. But as each month passes by, you can grab a bit more for yourself and for your family in terms of time and headspace. So The only thing that I always did, I always went to parents' evenings. I always went to sports day.
Yeah.
And I always went to the, what is it, the Chris Tingle or something, whatever,
Yeah,
nativity or
services.
whatever.
We went to a church.
Not really up on that, no. So I always did those things, but that's not very good, is it really? So I think make commitments to your family and stick to them. When you go on holiday, I'm on holiday. I'm on holiday now, guys. I might lose a bit of money when I'm here. Well, so be it. So be it. I'm with you.
I think a lot of business owners, again, sometimes can get caught up in their ego becomes part of the business, and you forget that a lot of people started the business in order to get more freedom so that they could do things with their family. You know, they wouldn't have to take holiday to go to their kids' sports days or whatever and things like that. And it's swiftly falls by the wayside. So yeah, I think keeping this idea of yourself as well, because there were moments, Big Mike, where that business, you were its little puppet, I think. And so your mental health wasn't the strongest that it could be.
It was actually controlling the strings, not the other way around, for sure. Your business is supposed to work really hard for you, not the other way around. Don't get into the habit and stay there, because it is a habit and you just get used to doing it. And certainly don't get into that idea that you have to do that. Now, the other thing, I put myself at the back end there to prove that my family is more important, obviously. But
I'm
also,
sure everybody watching this realizes.
This idea of, well, we won't take as much money out of the business, we'll leave it in. Well, that's fine. In the early years, that's fine. But it's supposed to be there to give you income, and it's supposed to make you wealthy. So you've got to draw money out and invest it, right? So start to make sure that that business gives you what you want, and don't just give it everything. Don't let it keep all the money. Don't let it keep everything to it, everything that goes with it. And make sure that you put yourself first. Make sure you have some time for yourself. Make sure you if you've got hobbies, that they don't suffer too much. Make sure that you take the money out that you want. Don't just make sure everyone else gets a really good wage and you don't. That doesn't fly. So, and very often the case, in new businesses, the salespeople will earn more than the owners. Right? That's okay to begin with, but it's not all right as an ongoing thing. So set targets for yourself and for your family. Set financial targets as to what you want to take out of the business, and you're much more likely to achieve it.
Okay, fantastic. So you get that war chest, your 6 months costs or whatever, and then after that, it's raining.
Take the money. Yeah,
raining money.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so the final one is one that actually a little bit surprised me because of how obsessed you are with quality. I know you to be. So this one, not measuring the quality of your service.
I am now.
Maybe that's why.
I'm now, but in those days I wasn't. I assumed if we were putting bums on seats, we were doing a great service. Right? So fulfilling the requirements, it's great, isn't it? No, because the way in which you fill the seats matters to the people that you integrate with, you deal with on a day-to-day basis in the clients. And the client that we lost was because the numbers were all good. We were placing people, we were hitting the service level agreements that we'd been set, but the hiring managers hated us because we treated them badly, and I wasn't aware of that, because I just looked at the numbers and that seemed okay. There's this thing called perceived indifference, which we've talked about before, where the clients think that we don't love them because the way in which we treat them. We do love them, but we've just taken them for granted a little bit. And so in this particular case, we lost the client. They went, and it was a lot of money for us once we lost them. And it could have been avoided if we'd have put a voice of the customer, VOTC, which we've spoken about on this show before many times. If we'd put a VOTC program in place, I'd have picked that up when it was an issue, before it even became a problem, let alone a crisis. I could have picked it up and fixed it, and we'd have kept the client, no doubt. So I think this idea of we measure KPIs in terms of internal performance, which we should do. How efficient are our people at putting a bum on a seat? We measure financial KPIs. We're also going to do that. But you should also measure service level agreement KPIs. What does your client think of you? Are you doing a good job for them, regardless of how many people you've placed? We didn't do that. And it took us a few goes to learn that lesson, to tell you the truth. But at the end of my time in that business, pretty much all I did was swan around talking to people and asking them how good we were or how bad. And that's what I did, really.
Do you think, I ask this as a business owner myself and dealing with a lot of business owners, is that in a situation where you own your business and you're so connected to it, there's an element of your ego gets involved and becomes almost one with the business. And so you, in some ways, I don't know if bury your head in the sand or just ignore things, but you
Mm.
sort of think like, I don't want to ask that question almost because I'm a bit scared of the answer. Do you,
Yeah,
or
because the answer
subconsciously
might be
think that?
rubbish. So
Yeah,
then, not only does that damage your ego because you thought you were great, but also you've got to then do something to fix that.
yeah,
Much better to keep our fingers crossed and hope. Well, good luck with that then. You know, I was playing golf with, this was a wee while ago now, an owner of a recruitment company, and we were talking about this. He said, oh, I don't need that. I said, oh, why is that then? He said, because that's what my account managers do. So I said, genuinely, I said, no, but supposing your account managers are doing a bad job, are they going to come back and tell you they're doing a bad job? He just pressed on to the next thing. Wasn't even prepared to talk about it because it's a space that he didn't want to go into. So, okay, that was that. It's just madness in my part. And I think we lost money, definitely lost money because of that.
right.
And I think we could have been a first choice supplier at a lot more clients a lot sooner. I mean, we clocked it eventually. I really got it. And it was the turning point of losing this client that did it for me. We really put a lot of effort. We had post-assignment appraisal forms going out, a whole bunch of different stuff. And because of that, if you look at the graph of our turnover growth, it went like that. And one of the reasons it did that was because of this, because we started to embrace this concept, quality of service, clients, not the internal numbers that we collected. And that's a different together.
Yeah. And I mean, with this one as well, I think it's one of those things that you can quite easily give to somebody else. Mike? Woo, we had a little bit of a technical hitch there, but I believe we're sorted. So let me just quickly summarize this fifth one there, Mike. So what you're saying here is a lot of the time people are so afraid of sort of hearing the measuring quality of your service that they don't ask for it. And this is a danger. So taking the time, understanding, are your clients happy? What that you can do to improve your service not only can help you keep them happy, but it can also help keep other clients happy, right?
Exactly that. Yeah, 100%. It's really important.
Okay, so in a second, I'm going to just summarize up and we're going to come for the top tip because you know I like these things to be practical, Michael. But before then, next week, I believe we are going to talk about how recruiters can increase their prices.
Yes, I do it all the time with my clients. I like to do it towards the beginning of the contract if possible. It's not always applicable, but I do if I can. And there are three things I like to do. In fact, there's more than that, but there's three things I like to do all the time, and I want to share those on the show.
And in recruitment, it's so often that those prices go the opposite way. So I'm very much looking forward to figuring out what those are. So if I may, Mike, if I may summarize these mistakes. So a lot of them they're quite small things. And normally when you start early on in your business, they aren't as noticeable. But when you scale up and when you grow, they become bigger problems. So one of them is poor delegation. It's either not delegating at all or abdicating tasks and therefore them failing. And you become a bottleneck in your business. The second thing would be having an unbalanced client estate, having all of your eggs in one basket or all of your eggs in one industry that then gets hit by a recession or something can leave your business vulnerable and it could quite easily wipe you out, especially if you're in a contracting basis. Next, you've got hiring the wrong people. They may be like, they may just not fit like in your team. You may have a gut instinct that they're wrong. Their attitude may not be what you thought it was. So when you're hiring those people, they come in and they're sort of rotten apples, as it were. Then you've got a more personal one is forgetting why you started your business, which was to give yourself and your family the freedom to live the life that you want to live. And what happens is your business becomes the master and you become the puppet. And that's not what we're after at all. And then finally, we've got not measuring the quality of your service, not understanding that just because you're providing a service doesn't mean it's an enjoyable experience. And therefore your clients may not be as happy. So to get around that, work on your delegation, be intentional around your client estate, use refrigerator recruitment to make sure that you're hiring people when necessary and they're the right kind of people. Really prioritize your friends, your family, and yourself. Remember why you started this business. And then finally, do a VOTC project. Do it regularly, do it often, do it loud. Figure out what your clients are actually thinking and act upon it. Does that seem like a decent summary there, Mike?
Hang on, yeah. Let's go with that. Yeah, that's
Okay.
absolutely cock on, yeah.
So, Mike, I think we summarized quickly there. Can you just give your final tip? Somebody's watching this and thinks, what should I take away from today's show?
Sure, yeah. Very simple. Commit to your family. Make commitments to them and keep them. So whatever it is, so I'm never going to miss a sports day. I'm never going to miss whatever it is. And even if your most important client says, oh, well, you know, we've got this big pitch, it happens to coincide with the sports day, say, no, I'm not coming. Make that commitment and stick to it. Holidays, it's about them. Commit to them, not to your inbox and to your mobile phone. It doesn't have to be great, but start small and build up, but to commit to them. And I so wish that I had done that.
I have to agree. I think that's a great one. Okay. Thank you very much to everybody for watching. We'll be back live next week. And Mike, thank you very much for today for sharing this with us.
Thank you, Kirsty. See you next week.